I'm not going to get shredded at the expense of my liver health. It's that simple. So we'll keep the fat burners out. Vigorous Steve here. I fasted for 6.5 days, and this is what happened. And actually, that's a total clickbait intro, but hear me out. I did full water fasting for 4 days. I initially set out on a 5.5 day water fast without any ancillaries or supplements to get my micronutrients in or vegetables. And then at day 5, I got so hungry, guys, right? No modafinil, no liraglutide in this fasting picture. So at day 5, I got so cognitively declined and so hungry that I had to introduce some salads again. So I turned this full water fast of 4 days into a fasting mimicking diet. And then I felt a little bit guilty, so I extended it with 1 day. So now we have a 6.5 day fasting mimicking diet, before and after blood work results, and before and after progress pictures. All right, I hope you guys don't mind. I was a little bit disappointed in myself, so we added in an extra day to kind of balance it out regarding the before and after results. And just for a quick reminder of my previous fast, where I literally deployed every fat burner known to man to speed up fat loss during this 5.5 day fast that I did a couple of weeks ago, besides the DMP, obviously, that will be highly irresponsible in a climate like Thailand's. Right, these are the before and after progress pictures, starting at 98.5 kilograms and ending up at 96.2 kilograms, down about 2.3 kilograms over a course of 5.5 days. And then before this fast, on Sunday morning, I weighed in at exactly 100 kilograms, looking like that. That was me at the start of this fast. I followed this exact protocol: 156 milligrams testosterone enanthate, 125 milligrams primobolan, the same protocol which I was running for the previous 13 weeks, with 250 IUs ACG 3 times per week. I took everything else out, all of the other performance-enhancing drugs, the fat loss aids, the appetite suppressants, everything else I discontinued, including salt intake, micronutrient intake, over-the-counter supplements, TUDCA, whatever else, right? Food for 4 days, and then I added in a little bit of vegetables here and there to keep me going, right? Because it was pretty tough, to be honest, to do this fast without anything that could provide some micronutrients or appetite suppression, or give me a little bit of a feeling of satiation, which the vegetables ended up doing. So all I ran was this, and the only detox supplements I incorporated was 2,000 milligrams calcium diglucarate and 2,400 milligrams EDTA disodium chelation to detoxify some heavy metals from my body, which I don't have the blood work results from the heavy metals just quite yet. That will take another 2 weeks. So when I get the before and after lead, mercury, cadmium, aluminium, arsenic, and the markers which I already have, the electrolytes and the iron, when I got all of those markers, the before and after results together, I'll make a separate video to show you guys how efficacious EDTA disodium chelation therapy is to remove heavy metals from your body. So stay tuned for that. If you're not subscribed, now would be a good time to do so you can watch that video as soon as it drops. So this was the entire protocol for me last week, besides a little bit of vegetables on Friday and Saturday. After this very minute protocol of just drinking water, right, predominantly, and having a coffee here or there, I ended up looking like that at 96 kilograms. So I lost, over the duration of this 6.5 day fast, 4 kilograms exactly, 4 kilograms on the scale. Lost a decent amount of subcutaneous water retention, intestinal mass, fat obviously. When I compare my weight to this morning at 97.7 kilograms, meaning I lost 2.3 kilograms on the scale. Fingers crossed that's 100% fat, right? Assuming that the glycogen stores and the water retention in both scenarios is pretty comparable. But it's also of note that on the previous fast where I deployed a ton of fat burners, right? I'll be honest, a ton of fat burners, I also lost 2.3 kilograms on the scale. Very comparable in both scenarios. And when I look at the progress pictures of last week's fast, I would say that the fat loss is also very pronounced compared to the fast where I deployed a decent amount of fat burners and appetite suppressants, right? Making the fast significantly easier from a fat loss perspective and, well, appetite suppressing perspective. Right? That fast was significantly easier, and it felt like it almost didn't take place, besides not going to the gym and really not eating anything of substance, right? Because I did a fasting mimicking diet a couple of weeks ago. Now, this fast was significantly tougher. I still lost a decent amount of fat, obviously, because I was, well, not eating anything for 4 days and then maybe eating 300 to 500 calories for the last 2 days where I did fasting mimicking. So the before and after pictures, it's very pronounced, the amount of progress that I made over these 6.5 days that I was in a very steep caloric deficit. I'm not really smiling because, again, it was a tough fast. I'll be honest. I'll be the first one to admit it that it was very, very tough last week. Luckily, I was still able to get all of my videos out. So kudos to me. But when you look at the back double bicep, maybe you guys can't notice it because, well, I can pinch particular fat areas by myself, right? It's my body, so I get to pinch wherever I please. The fat loss on the lower back was almost non-existent this time, which was surprising to me. It came from other body parts, very comparable to previous fasts where I would deploy fat-burning aids and appetite suppressants. But this time it seemed like it didn't want to come from my lower back at all. So I feel that in the before and after pictures, there's no significant fat loss off my lower back. Whereas previously, it's like the lower back almost disappears. Now, of course, in those cases, I might have Raloxifene in place, or HGH frag, or clenbuterol, GW1516, SR9009, etc., right? And then this time, without any of those in place, it seems that my lower back just remained and didn't really shrink. It got a little bit less watery, I would say, over the duration of 6.5 days. But again, judging by these progress pictures, it's very, very comparable. So I got lean pretty much everywhere else besides my lower back. So that's something of note. I did drop more weight on the scale. I lost about 2.3 kilograms comparatively, right, when you measure my body weight under particular circumstances. So let's say that I lost 2.3 kilograms of fat during this particular fast of last week and the previous fast using fat-burning aids, but it came from different places. So there's something to be said for using particular pharmacological interventions to lose fat from particular stubborn body fat areas, which I already made a video about. You can watch that here. If you have a particular stubborn body fat area and you're thinking about doing a fast to improve your blood work and speed up fat loss, and particular aids might be beneficial to speed up fat loss from those particular areas much faster. So these are the progress pictures of yesterday. And I do feel that I look a little bit better than the best progress pictures that I have of this cycle so far at week 9 after the 4 weeks on 5-amino 1MQ. Where I give you guys a little bit of an update regarding that experiment, which has now concluded. So I feel that I look a little bit better than back then. And now it's all full steam ahead to keep improving from this point onwards. Let's get into the blood work results and compare the blood work of last week to yesterday and see what has improved and see what worsened, right? For full transparency, we're going to discuss what has worsened also. Starting with the urinalysis, this time my specific gravity was 1.003, which indicates proper hydration. On my previous urinalysis of before the fast, my specific gravity was 1.009. So I could have drank 1 liter of water. So unfortunately, right, I'll be the first one to admit it, the hydration in both blood work results before and after is not identical because the specific gravity of the urinalysis is not identical either. So I'm going to do my best interpreting both blood work results with hydration in mind, considering that the previous blood work results I was not fully hydrated or not comparatively hydrated as the blood work results from yesterday. And I will mention hydration wherever I feel it's applicable to particular blood work markers. Again, my sincere apologies. Sometimes stuff happens. Last week we had the Olympia going on. I was in a little bit of a rush. So I fell about a liter short of being properly hydrated, which did not happen yesterday on those blood work results. Either way, in both instances, the pH of my urine was 6. So at least that was very comparable. Let's move on to the complete blood count. My white blood cell count came down with 0.8% from 5,220 to 5,180 cells per cubic millimeter. I would say that's negligible, right? any percentage up or down of about 1%, it's probably due to hydration changes between both blood work results. So I would say that the white blood cell count is comparable before and after this particular fast. Now, previously, I would see my white blood cell count go up following a fast of about 5.5 days, whether that's full water fasting or fasting mimicking diet of 5.5 days. But it could be that it went down, again, due to the hydration or because in the previous blood work results, I was still experimenting with Selank. And now that I've discontinued that for 1 week, because the immunomodulatory effects of Selank are now starting to wear off, right? A lot of things to consider on these before and after blood work results. But on paper, the white blood cell count is pretty much comparable. Hemoglobin came up with 1.1%. So even though hydration improved, hemoglobin still came up with 1.1% from 17.6 to 17.8 grams per deciliter. Now, that's most likely due to the autophagy or the destruction of red blood cells. Previously, I would see hemoglobin concentrations come up with maybe 2 or 3% even. But again, this time due to the hydration changes, it did not come up that much. Hematocrit did come down quite significantly with 2 points from 53 to 51%. So comparing both numbers, that's a reduction of 3.8% going from 53 to 51%. I know it's a little bit confusing because hematocrit is expressed in percentages, but before and after, it's a reduction of 3.8% between both numbers, which is very comparable and representative of most fasts that I've done in the past, comparing to full water fasting with comparable hydration levels, as well as fasting mimicking diets with comparable hydration levels also. So it's 2 points down on my hematocrit. The highest I've ever seen was 3 points down. So I would say that it's a very normal representative result of a 5.5 day to 6.5 day fast. Red blood cell count came down from 6.63 to 5.43 million cells per cubic millimeter. So that's a reduction of 3.6%. And the mean corpulus volume, hemoglobin concentration, and red cell distribution width states pretty comparable. Again, right? MCV, MCH, and MCHC are calculated values comparing the hemoglobin to the hematocrit and the red blood cell count. And the red cell distribution width went down with 4.5% from 13.2 to 12.6%. Again, I suspect that that's due to red blood cell autophagy or destruction due to the fast. I've seen that happen several times before where the red cell distribution width gets down to a lower percentage over the duration of a 5.5 day fast. So all in all, when I compare the complete blood count readings to previous fasts, I would say that it's a very normal result. Besides the white blood cell count not really budging, but it could also be due to the immunomodulatory effects of Selank starting to wear off. Moving on to blood chemistry and kidney function, glucose moment in time is 73 milligrams per deciliter. Blood urea nitrogen went down with 50.4% from 22.8 to 11.3 milligrams per deciliter. Well, hydration changes, but it's most likely due to zero protein intake over the duration of 6.5 days, right? Blood urea nitrogen is a metabolic byproduct of protein metabolism. And when you're eating a decent amount of protein in the form of 250 to 300 grams of protein per day, your blood urea nitrogen is going to be the top of the reference range, or maybe even over it, right? I've seen BUN levels of 35 milligrams per deciliter. Those guys are on way too much protein. And if you're slightly over the reference range, it's totally fine. I was eating about 250 grams of protein last week, ending up at a BUN of 22.8. And then after a week of no protein, 11.3 milligrams per deciliter. It's totally normal. I've seen it like as low as 6.5 milligrams per deciliter on previous fasting mimicking or water fasting protocols. A significant drop, but that's very normal when you're fasting. Creatinine went down with 10.9%. Quite a big jump this time, from 1.37 to 1.22 milligrams per deciliter. So I'm happy to see that. Again, I lowered my energy expenditure. I didn't eat any dietary protein. There's hydration changes, so that's why normally my creatinine wouldn't really budge that much, maybe 2%, 3%. But I think due to the hydration changes and because I excluded electrolytes, or maybe the EDTA and the calcium diglucarate has something to do with it, which I can't find any clinical evidence that either EDTA or calcium diglucarate can excrete creatinine at an extended rate or an increased rate. So I mostly think it's a hydration thing and maybe a shifting energy production or excluding pharmacology that is lowering my creatinine a little bit more substantially than previous fasts. But again, I'm happy to see it, right? A low creatinine is always good for ease of mind, even when I have high creatinine levels, my cystatin C is still within range, indicating normal and healthy functioning kidneys. Uric acid stayed the same. I would expect that to go up, but again, no significant autophagy occurring in my body. So it went up with 2.2% from 4.5 to 4.6 milligrams per deciliter. My creatine phosphokinase levels went down with 51.7%, which is very comparable to how much my blood urea and nitrogen levels went down over this 6.5 day fast, although that both markers are completely related to separate processes. So CPK went down from 1,782 units per liter to 861 units per liter, reduction of about 51.7%, quite a significant drop. So that's more of a steep reduction compared to deploying fat-burning aids on previous fasts, where my CPK would come down with about 40% on average. Again, I'm pulling these numbers out of my memory, so maybe on previous fasts my CPK went down with 50%, another time 45%, another time 40%, for example. But I do know that CPK generally declines less when I'm deploying fat-burning aids, especially clenbuterol, which is known to raise creatine phosphate kinase concentrations in the bloodstream disproportionate to, not incorporating clenbuterol in a PED protocol. So the last time it went down with, I can't remember, but I think it was about 40% on the previous fast with fat-burning aids in place. And now it went down with almost 52%. So that is something of note. Without fat burners, the CPK goes down quite substantially. And again, guys, I'm sure hydration plays a little bit of a factor, so please keep that in mind. Let's move on to serum lipids. Total cholesterol levels came down with 8.6% from 162 to 148 milligrams per deciliter. So, discontinued the ezetimibe, the fish oil, the citrus bergamot, dietary cholesterol, the anabolic androgenic steroid intake has not changed, which also affects total cholesterol and HDL and LDL concentrations, even though when you see on my sex hormone and neurosteroid parameters, there are a couple changes, which we'll discuss a little bit later. So discontinuing all of the beneficial health supplements and the ezetimibe, right, and food which contains dietary cholesterol, cholesterol still went down with 8.6%, and HDL also went down with 29.6%. It's so significant that I'm going to repeat it. HDL went down over the course of a week with 29.6%. Last week it was 54 milligrams per deciliter, and now it's 38 milligrams per deciliter. Now, 38 milligrams per deciliter is not a terribly low number for HDL, right? Some doctors would still say that that's acceptable. Ideally, you have over 60 milligrams per deciliter, but it's almost impossible when you're taking steroids, even with every over-the-counter supplement and ezetimibe in place. So last week, 54, down to 38 milligrams per deciliter because I discontinued the Raloxifene, the fish oil, the citrus bergamot, the ezetimibe, and the same protocol containing testosterone and primobolan, just gradually and slowly kept suppressing that HDL because, well, that's what testosterone derivatives do. LDL went down with 9.1% from 99 to 90 milligrams per deciliter. So even though the LDL went down, right, just like the HDL went down, albeit that the HDL went down, threefold, it worsened the LDL to HDL ratio from 1.8 to 2.4. So that's a substantial difference. So I can't wait to add the fish oil and the citrus bergamot and the ezetimibe back in to keep the LDL the same, but increase the HDL as a result of it, right? I'm going to reintroduce fat, healthy fat, that is, a little bit of avocado and almonds and salmon and all that good stuff, bringing my HDL back up. I will also start the cardio again because I discontinued that last week to take complete rest because I was getting pretty tired. So adding in the cardio and everything else that has a positive effect on your HDL concentrations and helps with total cholesterol and LDL concentrations should bring the HDL back up, right? Fingers crossed, to, let's say, 45 to 50 milligrams per deciliter because, well, primobolan is going up next week and that will continue to suppress the HDL going forward, right? All these things we have to consider. But yeah, I was not expecting my HDL to come down with 30%. Man, that was a surprising result to get back, even though some guys would say, well, my HDL's 10, bro, what are you complaining about? Right? But that's a very big change. I'll be honest. I'll be the first to admit that. So fish oil and citrus bergamot and everything else is coming right back into the picture. Liver panel. Albumin changed a little bit. It's important to check your albumin for the bioavailable testosterone levels. Went from 4.5 to 4.4 units per liter, so that has effect on the bioavailable testosterone readings, which we'll discuss a little bit later. Liver enzymes. Good news. AST went down with 49.3% from 71 to 36 units per liter. That's good to see. And the ALT went down from 58 to 28 units per liter, so that's an even bigger reduction of 51.7%. So let's say that the liver enzymes came down with 50%. Very substantial considering for the first 4 days I did not eat any fiber and I didn't really go to the bathroom. Right? Normally you would detoxify half of these metabolic waste products into your intestinal tract and then excrete that in stool. But yeah, I barely went because I only drank water and had a cup of coffee here and there. So no fiber and no micronutrients containing some binders, right? So normally when you're like me and you have a handful of supplements multiple times per day, that contains some carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and some fiber as well. So generally, what I did previously on full water fast, even with some micronutrient intake, some multivitamin and some B100 complex, etc., you get some mass in your stomach, which allows you to bind the bile acids and all the toxins contained within, allowing you to go to the bathroom. And excluding all of that, I was waiting for that moment for like 2.5 days to come. Like, I haven't been to the bathroom in a while. I feel a little bit uncomfortable from within. And then finally on day 3 that happened. So I honestly think that some of these parameters could have come down even more if I just included a little bit of fiber, right? From psyllium husk, for example, into this full water fast without ancillaries and multivitamins and micronutrients, etc. Just water and psyllium husk fiber. I would assume that these blood work parameters would have improved even better, right? But I'm happy to see that my liver enzymes came down with 50%, but excluding all of the medication that I was on previously and the ancillaries and the performance-enhancing drugs. And perhaps you get a little bit of a liver enzyme increase from a food intake and, of course, taking full rest from training, which is also known to raise these liver enzyme concentrations in the bloodstream. Still, right? AST is at the top of the reference range or slightly over it. And ALT is in the middle of its respective reference range. But ALT is usually not really an issue for me. It's mostly the AST. I will be making some changes to my protocol because I don't want these ALT and AST readings to shoot back up again. So the fat burners are out for now, right? But we'll discuss the full protocol at the end of this video. High sensitivity C-reactive protein test went down from 1.5 to 0.5 milligrams per deciliter. So that's a reduction of 66.7 rounded up %. And then when I got these readings and I started doing the before and after comparisons, I went WTFMF. What the fuck, motherfucker? Ferritin went up from 122 to 175 nanograms per milliliter. That's an increase of 43.4%. I've never seen my ferritin go up this much while fasting. Never. And I'm using EDTA disodium chelation therapy to take heavy metals out of my body. Did that raise my ferritin levels that substantially? I'm surprised. I can't even begin to explain it. And what's even worse, serum iron levels went up with 83.1% from 71 to 130 micrograms per deciliter. I've never, ever in my life seen my serum iron levels shoot up this much by not eating. I'm honestly, I'm at loss for words. I have no idea why. I don't even want to begin to explain it. I could speculate and say that it's due to red blood cell destruction, autophagy of the red blood cell, releasing hemoglobin, which is being metabolized into bilirubin in the liver, releasing some of its iron content in serum, raising serum iron concentrations that substantially. Again, hydration is also changing, but my serum iron concentration went up. Is it because of the EDTA chelation therapy? Potentially. I mean, it's serum iron. It's not bound iron to EDTA because it's a different method of analysis, even though EDTA is used to analyze other blood work markers. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think I need to do additional research, and then hopefully I will have that research available for you guys in the blood work update when I get the lead and mercury and aluminium results back, so I can give you guys an update by that time. So that also means I won't be reintroducing beef as a staple to my diet. Again, I was thinking about adding beef in maybe twice a week, 3 times per week, and on leg days, for example, and then maybe an extra beef meal on my cheat meal or refeed day. But for now, I'm going to leave it at 1 beef meal per week in the form of a hamburger or steak or pastrami sandwich or something else along those lines. Because I think my serum iron and ferritin levels are good the way they are. And, my hematocrit levels are creeping up. Plus, primobolan is coming up. So I don't want any erythropoietic incentive in place going forward. Right? So all these things I keep into consideration when I analyze my blood work parameters and alter my diet and alter my performance-enhancing drug protocol as well. Sex hormones. Interesting changes, right? Keep in mind they added in 2,000 milligrams of calcium D-glucarate, which is known to excrete estrogens from the body by improving and optimizing the glucuronidation process, in which sex hormones are marked for excretion and then are removed through either the kidneys or the liver. So estradiol went down with about 7% from 40.3 to 37.5 picograms per milliliter. And also of note is that I excluded the Raloxifene, which could potentially raise estradiol concentrations as well. So I improved estradiol metabolism by taking 2,000 milligrams of calcium D-glucarate per day for the duration of 6 days in between blood work results. And I also discontinued the Raloxifene, allowing estradiol and other estrogens to bind to the estrogen alpha and beta receptors, lowering serum concentrations. Plus hydration, again, plays a factor. So all in all, estradiol went down with about 7%. And I'm expecting estradiol to start coming down again after I make some changes to my testosterone and primobolan ratio. Total testosterone came down with 2.8% from 1,131 down to 1,100 nanograms per deciliter, right? Rounded up to make it convenient. So total testosterone came down also, right? It's not a 1% difference. It's almost a 3% difference, but it did not come down as much as the estradiol did. Is that calcium D-glucarate? Is that hydration changes? On 156 milligrams testosterone enanthate per week, we can just safely say that my serum testosterone levels are approximately 1,100 nanograms per deciliter. Not for long though. This week, those levels are probably getting bumped up to 1,500, maybe even 1,600 or 1,700 nanograms per deciliter. Free testosterone stayed pretty comparable, a change of 0.3% up from 33.3 to 33.4 nanograms per deciliter. Testosterone went down, but SHBG also went down, so the free testosterone stayed pretty much the same. Bioavailable testosterone went down with 2% because albumin concentrations changed, as well as sexual binding globulin levels changed. It went from 816 to 800 nanograms per deciliter. Might have felt exactly the same as last week, albeit a little bit spaghetti because I didn't eat so much. I will train chest tonight. Let's see how that goes. Sexual body globulin went down from 20.7 to 19.7 nanomoles per liter, a reduction of 4.8%, not as much as the estradiol coming down, but again, the burden of androgens is still the same. Estradiol levels went down slightly. Is that due to my thyroid markers coming down even lower over the duration of the 6.5 day fast? Potentially. I did not retest my T4 and T3 and TSH levels. I will check them maybe in a couple of weeks. I will add in 100 micrograms of thyroxine T4 going forwards. But as of now, I would say that the reduction in SHBG is due to the reduction in estradiol and the exclusion of Raloxifene, which I will reintroduce for at least 4 weeks to see if 120 milligrams has additional effects on gynecomastia. DHA sulfate went up with 3.7%, but it's the only neurosteroid or hormone that actually went up from 351 to 364 micrograms per deciliter. I feel just as cognitive as I did before, but it is of note that even though the estradiol, testosterone, and SHBG went down, the DHA sulfate went up. Is it due to increased steroid sulfotransferase enzyme activity metabolizing some DHA into DHA sulfate? Or due to the discontinuation of Semax, which adrenocorticotropic hormone also has some effect on DHA sulfate concentrations, right? I would need to do additional research if I were to reintroduce Semax again. But it is of note that DHA sulfate went up, unlike all of the other sex hormones. And again, it could be due to this steroid sulfotransferase enzyme activity or due to the discontinuation or maybe an adaptive process of running Semax for a couple weeks in duration. The electrolytes all came down with various percentages. I checked my serum electrolytes on a previous fast before and after. I'm not sure if that was on a fasting mimicking diet or a water fast or a fast with some fat burning aids in place. So I'll keep those electrolyte results and discuss them in the EDTA chelation video when I get my heavy metal concentrations in my bloodstream back before and after this fast. But the electrolytes, I'll just discuss them briefly. Sodium came down with 3.5%, potassium 17%, chloride 4%, calcium 1.1%, and magnesium 13.6%. Can't exactly remember if that's representative of a decline compared to previous fasts. I don't remember that off the top of my head. I'm sorry, guys. But I do remember on a previous fast where I checked my serum electrolytes before and after, that all of the electrolytes came down as well. How much of a percentage change, I can't remember. I just remember that everything came down a little bit, I would say. The only results that I got back of my heavy metals is the lead, which was undetectable below 2 micrograms per deciliter. So at least that's a good result. So all in all, I would say that all of these blood work changes are right to be expected, very representative of previous fasts, whether that was fasting mimicking, water fasting, or with ancillaries and micronutrients in place. The only thing that I'm really surprised about is that my ferritin and serum iron levels went up. So I will do additional research and exclude beef from my diet going forwards because I can't explain it. Right? To be honest, I don't know why. So I'll need to do additional research, but I just wanted to get this video out for you guys, considering that ferritin and serum iron levels are still within acceptable and normal parameters, right? They didn't go out of the reference range. They just went up. And yeah, I don't know why. So I'll try to figure that out in the meantime. Stay tuned for that update, which I will probably mention in the EDTA chelation therapy video. So all things considering, I'm going to settle on this following PED protocol for the next couple of weeks. 233 milligrams testosterone enanthate per week, plus 375 milligrams primobolan per week, spaced out over 3 injections, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I will bump up the Raloxifene from 60 milligrams to 120 milligrams per day, 60 milligrams AM and 60 milligrams PM. I will do this for 1 month only. 1 month only, and then check my liver enzymes and my IGF-1 levels, which I completely forgot to check last week. My apologies, but I will check that on 120 milligrams Raloxifene for the duration of about 4 weeks, and then decide if I want to continue or not. Because as of now, the results have not been that substantial. I mean, my gyno on both sides shrank. I will list the numbers on the screen and make a head-on-head comparison. What happened over the last 8 weeks of running 60 milligrams Raloxifene, and I wanted to see how much of a rebound effect there was, which right over the duration of 1 week, there was no rebound. Discontinuing the Raloxifene coming from the gynecomastia, even though my SHBG levels did come down a little bit. So I would say that 60 milligrams Raloxifene is not that substantial to shrink gynecomastia, but it did shrink. And of note is that the fat tissue on my lower chest is going down more substantially than 20 milligrams or even 40 milligrams of Novadex, Tamoxifen, ever did. So even though it might not be that dramatic for shrinking the gynecomastia breast tissue, it is effective for shrinking fat tissue of the lower chest if you're suffering from that. Now, unfortunately, that seems to come at the expense of losing fat from the lower body. So when I compare Raloxifene to Tamoxifen, just real quickly, Tamoxifen, Novadex, is better to remove fat from the lower body, right? The quads, the glutes, the hamstrings. I feel that with Novadex, the fat comes down there more substantially when you're in a caloric deficit, right? You have everything in place to potentiate fat loss. And when you compare that to Raloxifene, it seems to be better to remove the fat from your lower chest, so to say. So depending on which stubborn body fat area you suffer from, if that's on chest, Raloxifene at 60 milligrams per day might be more beneficial than Tamoxifen itself. And if you have stubborn fat on your lower body, 20 to 40 milligrams Tamoxifen might be better to remove stubborn fat from the lower body compared to Raloxifene. So again, depending on where you have stubborn body fat, either Tamoxifen or Raloxifene seems to be more beneficial, albeit that both compounds are selective estrogen receptor modulators. Stay tuned for the final verdict on Raloxifene regarding gynecomastia in about 4 weeks from now when I finish the 120 milligrams Raloxifene experiment. Then I know if it potentiates a little bit more shrinkage and reduction of the gynecomastia tissue by doubling the dose. But I also want to minimize the increase in liver enzymes and reduction of IGF-1 levels. So again, I will run it for 1 month and then discontinue it because it looks like I'm going to have to do that surgery anyway. I will stay with 250 IU's ACG 3 times per week. I will reintroduce 10 milligrams GHK copper for my site enhancement experiments that I'm going to be running going forward. I will probably add in 50 milligrams of modafinil here and there, probably at the end of the week when I feel that I'm losing a little bit of cognition because I'm in a caloric deficit. Same with the liraglutide, right? I discussed the protocol of 0.6 milligrams liraglutide Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then increasing the dose to 1.2 milligrams Thursday, Friday, Saturday to suppress my appetite and continue with this fat loss journey. I will just play it by ear or by feel, so to say. When I feel I need a dose increase or I need to incorporate the liraglutide to suppress my appetite, I will introduce that in. But I will keep a little bit of a flexible protocol, again, depending on my biofeedback and how much of an appetite reduction I need over the course of the week, if I need appetite reduction at all. I didn't take it today, and so far so good, right? I don't feel hungry, even though I had 2 meals in. No additional fat burners until the Raloxifene experiment has been concluded. So that's basically the only oral that I will take over the duration of the next 4 weeks. So no 5-amino-1-MQ, no clenbuterol, no GW1516, SR9009, HCH-frag, ribosine, yohimbine, whatever else that I discussed previously. I'm sure I'll get some fat loss by increasing my testosterone and primobolan, increasing my metabolic rate, and perhaps increase my energy expenditure a little bit through NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I will still do 30 minutes of cardio per day. I will still walk in between sets when I'm at the gym. Right? So the fat loss should not slow down, even though I'm not putting any fat burners in place. I just want to keep my liver health intact. Right? I had a little bit of issue with that in the past, which took a long time to resolve. So I want to keep these liver enzymes low, basically at all costs. So if it takes longer to get lean and in good conditioning again, if that happens to fall after Christmas or New Year or somewhere in January, I'm not going to get shredded at the expense of my liver health. It's that simple. So we'll keep the fat burners out. And then maybe 4 weeks from now, when my liver enzymes are in range and I feel that the Raloxifene experiment was unsuccessful and will be discontinued, then I might consider some fat burning aids as a replacement of that. And again, it depends on the liver enzymes and the ferritin and everything else that I see in my blood work results. The ancillaries will stay the same: 5 milligrams nebivolol, 10 milligrams ezetimibe, and 40 milligrams telmisartan per day. So that's the protocol for the next 4 weeks. When I have some more blood work results, I will update you guys. Subscribe now if you're not subscribed already, so you can get those updates right away. And if there's a little change here or there, I will update you guys on my Instagram page @VigorSteve. Follow me there if you're not following already. I think that pretty much covers everything. I hope it wasn't too long. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology, you can find the ebooks on my website, vigorsteve.com/shop. If you need help interpreting your blood work results, consider scheduling a consultation. Maybe 15 minutes is enough, maybe 30 minutes, maybe even 1 hour if you want to run a lot of things past me. I offer consultations. I do multiple per day. Contact me directly if you're interested. You can do so through the contact form or through Instagram. Right, @VigorSteve, follow me there if you haven't already. Man, I'll leave it at that, guys. Front double bicep for the Vigorous crew. You guys know what to do. You guys are loyal as fuck. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next video discussing, I'm not really sure.